Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to explain about the foundations of group behavior. So starting from this week, we are going to concentrate on the behavior of people at work at the group level. In this chapter, there are a number of learning outcomes that we'll try to achieve. I will explain about the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth learning objectives in this video, and the last one I will explain later in the next video, so don't forget to watch it. First of all, let's define and distinguish between the different types of groups in organization. In organizational behavior, a group is regarded as two or more individuals interacting and interdependent who have come together to achieve particular objectives. Groups can be classified either formal or informal. A formal group is defined by the organization structure with designated work assignments and established tasks. In formal groups, the behavior of the team members are usually directed towards achieving the organizational goals. In contrast, an informal group is neither formally structured nor organizationally established. Informal groups in the work environment meet the need for social contact most of the time. For example, 3 or 4 employees from different departments who always have lunch or coffee together can be regarded as an informal group. These types of interactions among individuals through informal will deeply affect their behavior and performance in the organization. In the foundation of group behavior, we also have the in-groups and out-groups perspectives. In-group favoritism occurs when we see members of our group as better than other people, and people not in our group as all the same. Recent research suggests that people with low openness or low agreeableness are more susceptible to in-group favoritism. On the other hand, out-group is the inverse of an in-group, which can mean everyone outside the group but more usually an identified other group. People will usually favor their own group members compared to the other group members, which is the out-group. For example, whenever you have a competition between the sports teams, you will probably support your own team members more compared to the other members of the other group, even though he or she is your best friend. So this is due to the in-group favoritism, which makes you favor your own teammates more than your best friend, which is from the out-group. So in-groups and out-groups can actually contribute to social identity trait, which is very similar to a stereotype trait. For example, for individuals who believe they are associated with a devalued group or a group with a bad image, they probably will be personally negatively evaluated. And this will probably make them lose confidence and affects their performance effectiveness. Therefore, it's very important for people to know how to manage people's perception towards their group so that it will not affect their effectiveness at work. So, with the understanding of social identity theory, we should be able to understand that work group shape members' behavior, and they also help explain individuals' behavior and the performance of the group itself. So here we are going to concentrate on some of the important group properties such as roles, norms, status, size, cohesiveness, and diversity. So we'll discuss this each one by one in detail in the sections that follow. Let's begin with the first group property, which is roles. Each member in a group will play their own specific role. A role is a set of expected behavior patterns attributed to someone occupying a given position in a social unit. We are usually required to play a number of diverse roles, both on and off our job. Different groups impose different role requirements on individuals. But how do we know each role's requirement? Here we should understand these 3 important terms: role perception, role expectation, and psychological contract. Role perception here refers to an individual's view of how he or she is supposed to act in a given situation. We get our role perception from the stimuli all around us. For example, our friends, books, films, or television. While role expectation refers to how others believe a person should act in a given situation. For example, we may expect that teachers should have caring and sociable characteristics. On the other hand, psychological contract is an unwritten agreement that sets out what management expects from an employee and vice versa. This agreement sets out mutual expectations. Managers is expected to treat employees justly, provide acceptable working conditions, clearly communicate what is fair day's work, and give feedback on how well an employee is doing. While employees, on the other hand, are expected to demonstrate a good attitude, follow directions, and show loyalty to the organization. So that is basically what we mean by the psychological contract. Sometimes, compliance with one role requirement may make it difficult to comply with another role, which could result in role conflict. At the extreme, two or more role expectations may be contradictory. Similarly, we can also experience inter-role conflict when the expectations of our different and separate groups are in opposition. An example can be found in work-family conflict. Indeed, work-family conflict can be regarded as one of the most significant sources of stress for most employees. Within organizations, many employees are simultaneously in occupations, work groups, divisions, and demographic groups, and all these identities can be in conflict when the expectations of one clash with expectation of another role. Therefore, it's important for all employees to understand how to balance all their roles effectively so that they can perform well and avoid the conflicts. The second property in group behaviors is norms. All groups have established norms. It is acceptable standards of behavior shared by members that express what they can and cannot do under certain circumstances. When agreed to by the groups, norms influence behavior within a minimum of external controls. Different groups, communities, and societies have different norms. Have you ever noticed how the emotions of one member of your family, especially strong emotions, can influence the emotions of the other members? Sometimes when one of your family members feels very happy, it can actually influence the happiness of the other family member. This is because a family can be regarded as a highly normative group. It's the same thing for a task group whose members work together on a daily basis, because frequent communication can actually increase the power of norms. A recent study found that in a task group, individuals' emotions influence the group emotions and vice versa. Like norms in general, employees' actions are shaped by the group context within which they work. Evidence demonstrates that employees' deviant workplace behavior is likely to emerge when it's supported by group norms. For example, workers who socialize either at or outside work with people who are frequently absent from work are more likely to be absent themselves. Therefore, when deviant workplace norms surface, employee cooperation, commitment, and motivation are likely to suffer. What would be the consequences of workplace deviance for groups? Some research suggests a chain reaction will occur in groups with high level of dysfunctional behavior. The process begins with negative behaviors, such as undermining coworkers or being generally uncooperative, and as a result of these behaviors, the group collectively starts to have negative moods. These negative moods then will result in poor coordination of efforts and lower level of group performance. So far, I've explained about how the roles we play and the norms we internalize tend to dictate our behavior in groups. However, those are not the only two factors that influence who we are in a group and how the group functions. Sometimes, the status of members reflects their status outside the group setting. Also, status often varies between groups of different sizes. So now let's examine how these factors affect a work group. Let's look at the third group property, which is status. Status here is a socially defined position or rank given to groups or group members by others. Status is a significant motivator and has major behavioral consequences when individuals perceive a disparity between what they believe their status is and what others perceive it to be. So, what actually determines status? According to status characteristics theory, status tends to derive from one of these three sources. The first one is the power a person wields over others, and the second one is a person's ability to contribute to a group's goals. Usually, people whose contributions are critical to the group's success tend to have higher status than the rest of the members. And the third one is an individual's personal characteristics. Usually someone whose personal characteristics are positively valued by the group, such as having good looks or intelligence, money or friendly personality, typically has higher status than someone with fewer valued attributes. So apart from status, another group property that is important in group behavior is the size. Do you think size affects the group's overall behavior? Of course, but the effect depends on what dependent variables we examine. Groups with a dozen or more members are good for gaining diverse input. If the goal is finding facts or generating ideas, then larger groups should be more effective. However, smaller groups of about 7 members probably will be better at doing something productive and much faster as well. One of the most important findings about the size of a group is the concern regarding social loafing. Social loafing here is the tendency for individuals to expend less effort when working collectively than when alone. Usually, these persons are called free rider. So why does a person involve in social loafing? Because group results cannot be attributed to any single person, the relationship between an individual's input and the group's output is clouded. So it's hard to measure a single person's effort in group compared to when they are working individually. So individuals may then be tempted to become free riders and coast on the group's effort. So the next group property is cohesiveness. Cohesiveness is the degree to which members are attracted to each other and motivated to stay in the group. The more cohesive the group is, the more united it is. Some work groups are cohesive because the team members probably have spent a great deal of time together, or maybe the group is small in size, or maybe even there are some external threats that have brought the members close together. Cohesiveness affects group productivity. Studies consistently show that the relationship between cohesiveness and productivity depends on the group's performance-related norms. So, what can you actually do to encourage group cohesiveness? Well, there are a number of things that group members can do. We can make the group smaller in size, or we can also encourage agreement within the group goals. We could also increase the time members spend together with more activities and events being done together. And we can also increase the group status and the perceived difficulty of attaining membership. Also, we can stimulate competition with other groups and give rewards to the group rather than to the individual members. So the final property of group's behavior is what we call the diversity in the group's membership. This is the degree to which members of the group are similar to or different from one another. Overall, many studies have indicated the benefits and the weakness from group diversity. Diversity appears to increase group conflict, especially in the early stages of a group's formation. This actually can lower the group's morale and raises dropout rates. Although differences can lead to conflict, they can also provide an opportunity to solve problems in unique ways. Together, the impact of diversity on groups is mixed. It's actually difficult to be in a very diverse group in the short term. However, if members can negotiate and weather their differences over time, diversity can actually help them to be more open-minded and creative and to do better. It's also important to note that one possible side effect from diverse teams, especially those that are diverse in terms of surface level characteristics, is what we call fault lines. Fault lines is perceived divisions that split groups into two or more subgroups based on individual differences such as gender, race, age, work experience, or education. Research on fault lines has shown that splits are generally detrimental and performance. Subgroups may compete with each other, which takes time away from core tasks and harms the group performance. But it's also to note that one study suggests that fault line, based on differences in skills, knowledge, and expertise, could actually be beneficial when the groups were in organizational cultures that strongly emphasize results. You know why? Because a results-driven culture focuses on people's attention on what's important to the company rather than on problems arising from subgroups. So overall, although research on fault lines suggests that diversity in group is potentially a double-edged sword, however, there are also some studies which indicates that they can be strategically employed to actually improve. So guys, I have explained some of the important basic foundation and property of group behavior in organization. So I will explain more in the next video. So don't forget to watch the next part, and thanks for watching.